Hey everyone, it's time for another live look at the astrology. My name is Katie Sweetman, and this is Empowering Astrology, and we are looking at the astrology of June 21st through 27th, 2021. It's the solstice. Officially, it was the solstice late last night here on the East Coast of the United States. So a bit different in different parts of the world, but we are now officially in Cancer season. So we have sort of turned the corner. We're in this sort of new quarter for the year. And this is a time when we sort of get back in touch with what really matters. Cancer is a water sign. It's the first water sign. But also here in the Northern Hemisphere, it is the longest longest day of the year when we have the most sunlight. But of course, for those who are watching in the Southern Hemisphere, you all just had the first start of winter and you had the longest night of the year. And this is what astrology, astrology is so tied to the seasons. It's a calendar system on one level, and it reminds us that we have the max light here in the Northern Hemisphere, the summer solstice, and then we have the minimum light at the winter solstice, and the winter solstice is when the light returns. So enjoy it while it lasts, everybody here in the Northern Hemisphere. But we are now going to start to slide towards going into the part where we go into the underworld, we go into the darkness, and then we are reborn. And this is why we have celebrations and festivals to mark these different passages. We burn bonfires, we have parties, and even at the winter solstice, when it's the Yule, when we burn the light and we celebrate the coming back of the light. So if you are watching live, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. I always like to, see where other people are in the world. If you were watching on the replay, you can also comment as well. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman. I am an astrologer and I'm a psychic medium here in New York City. And we gather every week, and we've been doing this for a couple of years now, but every week to have this live look at the astrology. And what I say over and over again is that the astrology is 50%. You are the other 50%. You put yourself in, just dropped my marker. You put yourself into the astrology. You color it with your feelings and your emotions. And this is why we all experience this week or all the previous weeks differently, based on who we are, based on our consciousness, based on our subconsciousness, based on our unconsciousness, based on our fears. But at the same time, astrology is astrology. It's a structure, it's a system, and it's something that we all collectively are living in. So again, this is the week of June 21st through 27th, 2021. I see some familiar faces in the chat. Somebody says hi from Jersey City. I'm going to be moving to Jersey City. This is actually the last time you all will see this background, so say goodbye. Yeah, it's a time of big shifts. It's a time of big shifts for everyone, and that's something that I'm going to touch on this week. When we spoke last week, we had what was called the second of 3 Saturn-Uranus squares. That's, we have this time when it's all about the structure of our lives, what we've been building things on. Saturn coming up to this square to Uranus. It's going to be all year long, even into the start of the new year, 2022. And the things that we thought were rock solid and unmovable at the start of 2021, even in 2020, it's not so rock solid anymore, because things have to move, things have to change. And something I've been saying over and over again throughout this year and our time together is that it is as if you have one foot in a new life and you have one foot in an old life this year. And there's going to be points throughout 2021. Last week was one of them. This week is another. We have a full moon this week where you are feeling the pull between these two lives. And we all have to take a step this week. And I think with the full moon in Capricorn later this week, we have to make these things real. We have to make these changes concrete. They just can't all be ideas in our head. So yeah, let's look at the, also wanted to recap, I was talking about Saturn square Uranus, but even, here we are, we're starting to come to the end of June of 2021, we are sort of now coming out of eclipse energy. We had a solar eclipse on June 10th. I still want that to be in your awareness, because even though the eclipses are now in our rear view mirror, so to speak, they are still with us, these powerful new beginnings. And it may have a trigger, a moon or a planet that touches on these eclipse energies, even if they were a month before or 2 months before, and we get the energy. And that, when we do have the full moon this week, it's not uncommon for the next, what are called lunations, to sort of echo, almost like an aftershock, to echo the eclipse energy. So yeah, there's a full moon this week. We also have some other things going on this week. Mercury turns direct on June 22nd. We'll also get into that. And also Neptune will turn retrograde on June 25th at 23 degrees of Pisces. And then we end the week with Venus and Leo. I won't go too much into Venus and Leo just because we have a lot going on. We'll save that for next week. And talking about how Venus and Mars in Leo and Saturn and Aquarius and Uranus and Taurus, and having this what's called a T-square energy as we go into July, is really pushing us forward into that new life. So let's look at the astrology of this week of June 21st through 2021. I was saying that it's now officially Cancer season. So the actual solstice was late last night for those of us here on the East Coast of the United States, but nevertheless, here we are. This is the first day of a new season, the first day of summer, first day of winter for those who are in Australia. And Cancer, the sign of Cancer, if you look at a zodiac wheel, the zodiac wheel always has Aries as the first. Somebody once said, why is Aries first? I'm like, I don't know, because there has to be some sign that's first. And maybe there's actually a better answer than that, but that's my joke, everybody. So we have Aries as the first sign, and then you sort of go down counterclockwise, and then you get to the bottom of the zodiac wheel, and that's where Cancer is. And Cancer is what everything rests upon. And Cancer reminds us, and I know that family and home are not so simple things for many of you. They often come with a lot of painful memories, difficult associations, I know, because some of you are my clients. But nevertheless, home and family on an archetypical level are what support us. We need these things. We need these things because we're human beings. We need to feel like we have a place that we can call home, that we have roots in the ground, that we have people who, if they are not actual family, they are like family. And astrology teaches us that without these things, we do not have a root to sort of connect us in the world, because, like I said, Cancer supports everything in the chart. You cannot reach the highest of the highs, Capricorn, in astrology without making sure your base is secure. So this is a season when we have to get back to our base. We have to get back to what really matters. And this could involve a move. I know I'm moving. This can involve changes in your home environment, people moving in, people moving out. This can be, spending more time with loved ones, either actual family or people who are like family. And this is, the season, at least here, culturally in the United States, we're all kind of gathering outside. We're with family members. We're cooking things. Cancer loves the nostalgia of the past. It loves the simple things that we all gather around. It loves to nourish ourselves with a home cooked meal, or that recipe that was grandma's, the thing that was passed down through generations. So there's a lot of nostalgia in Cancer. It's sort of the sign of the memory keeper. It's ruled by the moon. And the moon is this planet that it sort of pushes and pulls at us. Yes, it's feelings, it's emotions, but it's our subconscious, it's our unconscious, it's our dreams. So this is a season where, in contrast, let's say, to the Capricorn full moon that's on Thursday, June 24th, you need to make sure that you're being nurtured, that you're being cared for, because otherwise it's just all hard earth. Capricorn. It's just structure or work, but you have to have your heart in things. And so this is the season when we have to really get back to what matters and find the balance, of course, because it can't be all Cancer, it can't be all Capricorn, it's opposing sign. But we're sort of now feeling our emotions this season. Cancer is one of the 3 water signs. The other 2 are Scorpio and Pisces. And so each water sign represents sort of this next step in evolution. In Cancer, it's my emotions, my feelings. In Scorpio, it's our feelings, it's what we share and exchange. And then we get to Pisces, the last water sign, and it's universal emotions, it's universal feelings. And I also think about how Cancer is the archetype of the mother, and I realize there's the archetype and then there's actuality for many of you, but nevertheless the archetype of the mother is that very caring and nurturing and soft energy. When we get to Pisces, the last water sign, it's not our mother, it's not the mother, it's the great mother, it's the cosmic mother. So we're going to actually see these 2 energies play off of one another this week, because we are going to have what's called Sun trine Jupiter. Now that the Sun is in Cancer, it's picking up on a trine to Jupiter and Pisces. If you recall, Jupiter has been in Pisces as of May 13th. Jupiter just went retrograde. It went retrograde yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, on June 20th. It will, it's only dipping into Pisces. But when I think of Sun trine Jupiter this week, I just think of this abundance of care and support and emotions. And I don't like to overpromise Jupiter as an astrologer, because a lot of people say amazing things about Jupiter. Jupiter's in your sign. This is your gold-plated year. Everything's going to come up roses. And I know all you Capricorns in 2020 were like looking around like at each other like, wait a second, Jupiter's in Capricorn. I'm a Capricorn. Why is 2020 not better? Because you also had Pluto and Saturn in your sign. It's a little bit more complicated than that. You also have eclipses. Why we can't take one thing in astrology and make it the thing. We have to sort of look at all the nuances. But yes, Jupiter is in Pisces right now, and I actually really like Jupiter in Pisces. It's in the sign that it rules. Pisces is about inner faith, inner wisdom. It's the sign that bridges, like I said, Aries is the first sign, Pisces is the last sign. It takes us to the end of the zodiac. It bridges between one cycle and the next cycle, this world and the other world. So Jupiter is helping us to open up to something beyond ourselves. It could be spirituality, it could be our dreams, it could be our intuition. But here we are in Cancer season, and we're sort of thinking about the things that really matter. And then Jupiter is helping us to connect to something beyond. It's the divine. It's the support of the divine. I mean, I always think of Jupiter and Pisces. It's like the support is coming, that last minute miracle comes through. So like I said, I'm not trying to overpromise Jupiter, but we do have those energies going on this week. I think Jupiter trines Sun trines Jupiter on the 23rd of June. But before that, not to get ahead of myself, Mercury does turn direct on June 22nd. It will do so at 16 degrees of Gemini. If you recall, Jupiter on the brain, Mercury turned retrograde, I think it was 23 Gemini. It was the end of May. And Mercury retrograde was very much a major part of our eclipse season. And this is why there's this rhetoric about when Mercury turns retrograde, we all grind to a halt. And I'm like, we need to stop that. It's not that things don't get weird during Mercury retrograde. It's not that we shouldn't do our due diligence. It's not that things don't, electronics do often get weird. And I remember when I was commuting into the city for my office job, it was like, sure enough, the MTA in New York City would just get super weird during Mercury retrograde. And I just wanted to take the data and just start plotting things and see if there was a spike or a correlation. But that's a research project for somebody else in another time. Nevertheless, Mercury turns direct. So for those who were sort of waiting to do things, then you maybe give it a few days, of course. But my philosophy is that the retrograde, all retrogrades, it's a time when the energy changes. It goes from active, which is direct, to receptive, which is the retrograde. Everything in this universe, this is electronic and energetic mechanics. It's either the plus or the minus on the battery. It's just how things work, yin and yang. So this is a time when we've had to pull in, be receptive, be more yin. And I think that maybe, when we start getting into like, oh, retrograde bad, we're denying ourselves the yin energy, which is, to pull in, to reflect, to get quiet, to intuit. We get frustrated because we're not moving direct, yang. But this is a time when, yes, the energies are changing. Things typically, sometimes information that maybe was unclear is now clear. Maybe you're waiting for something. Now it's finally moving forward. But the thing about, Mercury, like I said, Mercury was retrograde during this eclipse season, and we couldn't sit still. It's like the horses, the horses in the stagecoach. Wow, that's a really weird analogy. But they're moving, they're going fast, and there's no stopping them. And that's what eclipses do. They just sort of pull us into the next scene, the next chapter. All we can do with the Mercury retrograde is sort of like, all right, hope it all works out. And another point to that is that Mercury was square Neptune during this entire retrograde process. And Neptune teaches us that there are our plans and then there are divine plans. So sometimes we just let ourselves move with the flow, go with the flow. And maybe that was part of our eclipse season. It was to let go. It was the divine surrender. It was getting in touch with our universal self. It was learning to trust our intuition more. Because Mercury in Gemini, it's very analytical. It's very mental based. So maybe this is a time where, we can't be all head. We have to get in touch with our heart. And this is sort of a point I made last week and something that I wrote. There are two ways you can look at things. There's the actual literal definition, like words, voice, ideas, but then there's the subtlety. What do these things mean? And that's where you get into the other side of things. And we had to look at the subtleties while we were doing the Mercury retrograde. The other thing this week is that we do have a Capricorn full moon on Thursday, June 24th. This one will be at 3 degrees of Capricorn. So I was thinking about this full moon in Capricorn for a couple of reasons. One, it's like the first full moon in Capricorn that we've had without it being an eclipse. Maybe that's incorrect. But I remember that, we had all these eclipses, 2018, 2019, 2020, that were in Capricorn. And that was a pretty interesting time because they were picking up the energies of Pluto and Saturn. But nevertheless, a full moon in Capricorn is a time when we have to take a step up. We have to, show Capricorn that we know how to take responsibility, to set boundaries, to push ourselves harder, to set goals, to work towards that goals. This full moon, as the counter to Cancer season, says, all right, we have our base, we have our home. Now where do we set our sights? Where do we direct and drive our lives? What direction do we go? So this is sort of the point I was making earlier, is that this full moon in Capricorn, because Saturn is square Uranus, picks up on this story that's been off and on throughout this year and will continue into the beginning of 2022. Again, one foot is as if one foot is in a new life, one foot is in an old life. Capricorn and Saturn, Capricorn's a sign of matter. Saturn is the planet of matter. Matter and manifestation, bones, teeth, structure, the physicality of life. So there's a need to sort of make things physical right now. Maybe we've been thinking a lot about different ideas. They've been in our head. We've had some intuitions, Mercury square Neptune, but how do we make them concrete? And maybe that's something that's happening for you this week. And whatever you are doing, Saturn square Uranus, it has to be different. My sort of the analogy that I'm making so that people can have a different way of feeling and experiencing these energies this year is that it's as if you went into 2020, 2021 thinking that you were a certain shape or your life was a certain shape, but that shape either was never you, it was mom and dad's or your communities or the past or traumas. And now it's time to really be in the shape that's you. Example, let's say you've been playing it safe and playing it small for a long time, but here comes 2021. And 2021 is trying to get you not to play safe, not to play small, to take the next step up, to get out of your comfort zone. So these are themes that may be present in this week's astrology for you all. And I think I made this point already, but eclipses, they can manifest a month before, they can manifest a month after, give or take. And this full moon is like the first one that we're having after a solar eclipse. We're still in the lunar month that began with the solar eclipse. So this full moon, in a way, could have eclipse-like energy. Just a friendly reminder. What does this energy do? It's as if the curtain comes down on one act of your life and the curtain comes up on another. And maybe it's a very different scene, maybe it's a very different location, maybe it's a very different cast of characters. And that's what eclipses are doing. They are moving along the narrative of your life. So like I said, even though the eclipses were last week or 2 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, we were still getting the energy. So that's something that's present this week. I will talk about where this full moon will activate each of the 12 signs in just a moment. I do also want to quickly talk about Neptune retrograde. So Neptune turns retrograde at 23 degrees of Pisces. This will be on Friday, June 25th. Neptune, just friendly reminder, Neptune has been in Pisces since 2011, 2012. Yes, Neptune spends 14 years in a sign. Uranus spends 7 years in a sign. Saturn spends 2.5 to 3 years in a sign. So when we're getting into the outer planets, where these are like long arcs of time, and this whole arc of time, it's a lot of complexities in Neptune. That's another show, another topic, another time. But Neptune runs in the background. So even though we're experiencing all these full moons and stuff, you have Neptune in the background. What is Neptune doing? It is dissolving the boundaries between this world and the next world, which is ironic because it's happening right after a Capricorn full moon, which is about making things real and concrete. So here comes Neptune. Neptune says, okay, well, it's real and concrete, but at the same time, there's like a porousness to it. Or maybe what you are building now needs to be in alignment with your highest self or something greater or something altruistic. Because I think Neptune in its best light is altruism, it's compassion. It wants to be aligned with the greater good and for spirituality. So maybe we're doing that balance between our material life and our spiritual life this week. Neptune makes us feel more, and it's going to, crank up the energies of the full moon. It's going to crank up the energies of Cancer season. So if you suddenly are getting weepy, that's a very classic Neptune thing. Is like, why am I crying? Well, maybe they're your tears, or maybe they're not your tears. It's the thing about Neptune. It starts to put us in touch with something collective. It could be the emotions of humanity. It could be the emotions of your city and the fact that everybody's feeling something and processing something. So we start to connect to a universality when we feel into Neptune. But really keep your grounding this week. Like I said, ironic because we do this full moon in Capricorn. Keep your grounding this week. Keep your anchor. What does that mean? Know exactly who you are. Put your feet on the ground. Put your feet into the soil. It's not that we're doing just matter this week. We just have to make sure that our material selves are fully anchored so that we can start to connect to something beyond us and not get lost in the vapors or get lost in the ethers, so to speak. So let's look at the astrology of where this full moon is going to activate each of the 12 signs. So Aries. So Capricorn is your career sign. So, Capricorn's at the top of your chart. So this is a time when you have to make a decision. Yes, a decision. By the way, this is for everybody. Full moons are about making a decision. When we see something in its full light, we are either making a left or a right, an up or a down. but there is a sense that we need to take action. We have to deal with something. So this full moon is putting a spotlight on your relationship sign of Capricorn. Classic astrology is that there's some sort of decision that you have to make about your professional life. Maybe you are getting a new position. Maybe you are getting a promotion. Maybe you're making a job change. And I think that it's important for Aries to understand that with Uranus square Saturn all year long, your professional life's been under pressure. All this year, if not since parts of last year. Here's how I'm going to put it to you, Aries. You've been trying to do your professional life a certain way, and maybe that worked up until 2020, but it doesn't work anymore. This could be just the strain of trying to do things at home versus in the office. This could be the strain of realizing that whatever sort of pace of life or pace of career that you had, up until 2020 isn't working anymore. Maybe you realize that your professional life isn't in alignment with your highest truth or your needs or what you really want to do in this world. Every Aries is going to feel this differently, but you have to resolve these two tensions between you are in a time of really shifting what you value, how you earn a living, how you want to earn a living. What is that money really truly worth to you? Is it worth working 16-hour days, 17-hour days? For what? For what reason? I think this is where we have to do that balance between Cancer and Capricorn. So this full moon is really trying to get you to resolve a value conflict. It's trying to get you to resolve a conflict in maybe the direction you've been taking your life in. Or how do you get your professional life or your ambitions or your direction in alignment with some of the changes, the bigger changes that you've been making, if not just since 2020, since 2018. So, Taurus. So this full moon is putting a spotlight on your beliefs. What do you believe in? What's your truth? What's your convictions? What's your faith? Maybe you're seeing something in full light. You have to make a decision about what you are really standing for. This full moon also puts the spotlight on your legal matters. This is a little bit more practical mention. Schooling, maybe you're thinking about going to school, and also travel. This is a time, I know travel's a little funky right now, but things are shifting and changing, and maybe you're thinking about a big trip, Taurus. Nevertheless, this is a time for you to really search and examine yourself, and examine what you stand for, and examine what you put yourself behind, because a little friendly reminder, Taurus, the other end of this square is Uranus and Taurus. Uranus has been in Taurus since May of 2018, March of 2019. So you are in a 7-year process of reinventing yourself. Yes, 7 years. Of course, there's 4 years left on this, but Taurus, you're in this time of really breaking out of your mold. So, maybe you have to confront or look at the beliefs that have been keeping you in a mold that doesn't work anymore. This also can mean if you are involved in any sort of publishing, broadcast media, this is a full moon that can put a spotlight on getting your ideas out there. Gemini. So for you, throat chakra. For you, this full moon is putting the spotlight on what I like to call your 8th room of your astrology house. So Capricorn is your 8th sign. And when you get to the 8th sign of something, you have to face yourself. You have to face your deep self, your shadow, your emotions, your fears. And you're like, well, I don't want to do that. And I'm like, well, this is just, the time. And for everybody, there is going to be a time. This happens to be your time, Gemini, where you have to do the work this month. Not even this month. It's really just over the next few days. And maybe you're making a decision about something about vulnerability or power, or control, or even your emotional and mental health. Maybe this is a time where you're like, I need more support. I need to make some big changes in my life. This part of the chart also talks about finance and wealth building and needing to get your financials business in order. So maybe you're making a very practical decision about a mortgage or a loan or something about your financial situation. This full moon again is highlighting the tension that is happening for you between this. I think Gemini is going through a little bit of a searching of its soul, maybe a crisis of conscience, maybe a crisis of faith, or maybe just a deep soul searching. And that's happening because Saturn is in what's called your 9th sign. You have Uranus in your 12th sign. So you're just trying to figure out which way is up right now, Gemini, and what you really truly believe in, and having to sort of look outwardly to answer that question and look inwardly to answer that question. But I think what this full moon is saying, in order to answer that question, you have to really look at something that could be in your way or something that could be in your shadow, but you are doing the transformation work with this full moon. Cancer, happy birthday, Cancer. Yes, it's your season. You will have a Cancer new moon in a couple of weeks. Until then, you're sort of in the wings, waiting for life to sort of tick up into your season a little bit. But yes, the sun is now in Cancer. Capricorn, where this full moon is on Thursday, June 24th, it's in your relationship sign. And I just have to sort of make some bigger points, Cancer. So, and this maybe is true for everybody, but this full moon is in the same sign where Pluto is. And Pluto has been there since January of 2008. Pluto right now is at the very end of Capricorn, it's at 26 Capricorn, but it's been like, it's taken 13 years for it to get to 26 Capricorn. But my point is, Cancer, is that since 2008, you've been in a period of your life where you've had to really do a lot of deep, profound work about relationships. Who has power? Who doesn't have power? Do you have power, Cancer? Or what is sort of the toxic relationship patterns that you've had to deal with? Or maybe everything's fine, Cancer. But the idea is that this full moon in some way sort of puts a spotlight on a deeper, decade-long process about you and other people that you've been working on since then. This full moon puts in the spotlight a relationship. This doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be any relationship or partnership. So this full moon is getting you to make a decision about a relationship. Maybe you are hearing about something. This full moon, if you are not in a relationship, maybe this is just a natural time for somebody to come in. Nevertheless, this is your friendly reminder, Pluto aside, that Cancer, you cannot do things alone. Life runs on other people. We have to find the balance between these two. And this is the time when you are reaching out to other people, you are forming alliances, you are building partnership. But to that Saturn square Uranus point, with Saturn in what's called your 8th sign, and this is, I think, a point I made last week, Cancer, you're doing a lot of deep work right now. I mean, like really deep emotional work. This is where you have to let go of things that maybe you have not wanted to let go of, because Cancer is a secret Taurus, meaning they want to hold on to things, except Taurus likes to hold on to physical things. Cancer wants to hold on to emotional things. And what do you have in this 8th room of yours, Cancer? Do you have all these feelings, all these resentments, all these past things that you've been holding on to? So I think this full moon is really saying, in order for there to be a dynamic shift in how you connect to people, you have to let something go. You have to let something go of the past. You have Uranus in what's called your 11th sign. It's really opening up you to a new circle, social circle, a new way of seeing things, a new way of seeing your place in the world. So there's a bit of a shift that's happening with this full moon, Cancer, but bare minimum, baseline, it is about relationships and your relationships with all people in your life. Leo. So this full moon is in what's called your sixth sign. And the sixth sign is about health and wellness and how you take care of yourself, the work and projects that you do. To the point I was making for Cancer, this full moon, in a way, echoes some of the work that you've been doing over the last decade to make really profound and lasting changes in how you take care of yourself. Maybe you've had a dietary shift over the last decade. Maybe your relationship with your body is profoundly different over the last decade. But this full moon, it says, on one level, it's time to capitalize on a lot of the changes that you've been making. It's also saying that it's time to make a decision about something in your day-to-day life or in your health or in your wellness. So maybe you're scheduling your checkups. Maybe you're using this full moon to get back to what you need in order to feel healthy, to feel grounded, to feel really kind of good in your body, well in your body. And this full moon is also picking up on this dynamic square between Saturn and Uranus. So Uranus is in your career sign. It's been in your career sign since May of 2018, March of 2019. And what I've been telling my Leo and my Leo clients is that you are in a 7-year process, of which you have 4 years left, of reinventing your career. And this could mean doing a 180 or doing what you're doing, but doing it you, or doing it bigger. So this is a time when maybe you're seeing all the changes you've been making in your professional life take that next big step up. On the other end of it, you've got Saturn in your relationship sign. So this is a time when maybe it's about relationships, your relationships with other people, your dynamics in not just your personal life, but dynamics in your professional life. And maybe new people are coming in, and maybe people in your professional life are coming in that are very different than whom you normally connect with. But it's a really powerful full moon, and it's really bouncing off a lot of the seismic shifts that you're making this year, Leo. Virgo. So Capricorn is your fifth sign, and the fifth sign of the zodiac for any sign is about how do you express who you are. And it's not, self on a very rudimentary level. It's self on like what makes you you. Your talents, your creativities, your spirit, your essence, your identity. So this is a full moon to get very clear about who you are. And maybe, Virgo, you're involved in some sort of project, some sort of creative project. This is the full moon where you have to put your stamp on something. That's the thing about this part of the zodiac for you. It's like you have to, inhabit whatever you're creating. My joke is like whether it's a spreadsheet or it's a piece of art or it's the food you're making, like you have to put you in it. So this full moon is getting you to be serious and take your talent seriously. And with the square between Saturn and Uranus, something has to shift about your day-to-day life. If you haven't been taking yourself seriously, how do you put you in your day-to-day life? How do you put yourself into the schedule, Virgo? Uranus is in your ninth sign, so you're sort of in the midst of a seismic shift in how you see things, see yourself, see the world. Things have to open up. And if you've been denying yourself, this is a full moon that's really trying to shift that narrative. But yes, also this is a part of the chart that talks about children. I mentioned this in case this is relevant to your life, Virgo, and for those who are trying to grow their family, this is the full moon that actually can touch on themes of pregnancy and children. Libra. So this full moon is at the bottom of your chart, sort of what I was saying at the beginning of the broadcast about Cancer and Cancer season, and Cancer forms the bottom of the zodiac wheel. But Libra, you sort of have things flipped naturally. That's just sort of how things are arranged for you. But this full moon is talking about home and family, where you live, your living situation, who lives with you. Maybe there's a decision about a move. Maybe you're making changes in your living situation. Maybe people are coming in or out. This full moon is touching on a much bigger story, and maybe on a smaller level, that's been going on for the last decade. And Libra, you've been doing a lot of big work about home and family in the past, and memories and parents and mom and dad and all the complicated things. And I think what I've been telling my Libra clients or Libra rising clients is like, you have this foundation, and that foundation, almost like soil, it has a lot of things in it, and maybe those things are not helpful. It could, like I said, it could be the past, it could be mom and dad. So you've been doing this work over the last decade to really excavate the things out of your foundation that don't support you anymore. And so this full moon highlights that process. Maybe it concretizes this process in some way. With Saturn square Uranus, Saturn is in your fifth sign. It's saying take yourself, take your talent seriously. For example, if you grew up in an environment that wasn't very supportive, or God forbid it was abusive, and maybe you don't take yourself seriously, maybe you don't prioritize your individuality, and the full moon is like, but we have to. It's part of what 2021 is about, is to really break out of the things that confine us. So you have this dynamic that's happening between the self and the self-expression, the individuality, but also your eighth sign, because Uranus is in your eighth sign. So you have to see where you self-destruct. You have to see where these old emotional patterns, where are their roots? Did something happen? Was it the past? And really make a shift with this full moon. But that's on a deeper spiritual level, on a more of a basic level. There's going to be probably some change in your living situation. And like I said, classic interpretation is that this is a time for a move, or just maybe you're just decorating, or just, really changing your home environment in some way. Scorpio. So this full moon puts the spotlight on the work you've been doing to take your voice seriously. Capricorn is your third sign. Third sign is about voice, it's about communication, it's about the mind, it's how you think, how you listen, and how you learn. And ever since Pluto got there in 2008, you've been doing a lot of deep excavation of your pipes, so to speak, because Scorpio is a sign that in general doesn't want to speak. It wants to keep its cards close. It wants to sort of survey everything, be very calculated and planning about what it has to say, but that sometimes can sort of get in the way. So this is a full moon to sort of, say something, to be heard, to really know the power of your voice. And maybe your relationship with your voice is something that was impacted by the past, or impacted by family. This full moon also highlights choice, because this part of the chart does talk about the choices that we have to make in life. Is it a left or a right, an up or a down? But nevertheless, we all have to make some sort of choice in which direction we're going. With Saturn in the bottom of your chart, this is a time where some of these choices are really deeply impacting your home environment or your living situation. With Uranus in your relationship sign, some of these choices are seismic. They are touching on new people coming into your life, a greater shift in how you connect, interact, and socialize with people. Uranus is trying to get you, Scorpio, out of your way. Yes, it's possible. But this is a full moon that, even though this is not directly speaking to this process, it's certainly highlighting it through the full moon. But you have to find your voice, Scorpio. Sagittarius. So this full moon highlights money, how you earn it, how you spend it, what you value, sort of the value you put on things, and even the value you put on yourself. So this full moon, on a very basic level, is a financial decision. It's a financial decision on a purchase. Maybe you're making a big purchase. Saturn's involved. Saturn talks about investments in the things that are like large purchases. Maybe you've been holding off on making a big purchase because it's Mercury retrograde, or maybe you don't care, Sagittarius. But you've been doing a lot of deeper work since 2008 to make some big changes in your relationship with your material world and money. And so this full moon, in some larger arc of time, is a culmination, or one of the culminations, of all the deep work you've done to really establish yourself financially, to shift how you see money or see your value, because our self-worth and money are intrinsically tied together. I wish it were different, but it's not. So this full moon is sort of talking about these deeper changes you've been making. Now, Saturn is in what's called your third sign. So you have some big choices to make about which way you're sort of taking your investments and your spending, and maybe how you see things and how you value things. But this is also a time when you have to really have a different voice, a different mindset, a different thinking about things, and taking it seriously. And then you have Uranus over in Taurus, which is just really shaking up your day-to-day life. Your day-to-day life in 2021 looks very different than it did in 2018, 2019. And maybe you just have to, in order to facilitate some of these bigger changes that you're making in your material life or your financial life, you have to get your day-to-day stuff together. You have to organize your day differently. You have to prioritize your time differently. But this is for everybody, really, truly. This is about you on some level getting out of your way. Sagittarius. Capricorn. So this puts a spotlight on you, Capricorn. It's a full moon in Capricorn. You are a Capricorn. So this is a time in the zodiac calendar when the spotlight is on you. So maybe quite literally the spotlight is on you. You get recognized for something. You get a promotion. Somebody's like, oh, great work. Look what you're doing. Or maybe you have to sort of take the next step up in your life. It's about the responsibilities that you carry. It's about how you define your life. I think it's a little bit of an interesting time for Capricorn. It's poor Capricorn's life. If it's not Pluto, it's something else. Like I said, Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. So the Capricorn's just gone through so much over the last 13 years. But Saturn, which is Capricorn's planet, is in Aquarius. Aquarius is Capricorn's second sign. So there's something about this full moon that's about your material life, your material stability, what you value, what you earn, how you spend your money, and how you earn a living. And then you have Uranus over in Taurus, which is your fifth sign. So this full moon, again, is putting you in the spotlight. It's also highlighting this tension that's happening in 2021 where you need to get out of your way, Capricorn. Sort of who you are intrinsically, your identity, your self-expression has been radically shifting over the last couple of years. And maybe because you've been in a box, like a shape or a role or a duty or responsibility for eons. And what 2020, 2021 taught you, Capricorn, is that has an end point. Now you're in a new time where everything has to shift, Capricorn, and it has to align with the truth of who you are. So if you keep trying to fit yourself in a role or a job or a life or this or that, and it doesn't fit anymore, this full moon is sort of really highlighting that and asking you to take action. That's what a full moon in the sign ultimately does, is it asks you to take action. Maybe there's a sense of urgency of things right now, but you are at a time when it's, which way are you going, Capricorn? But whatever way you do go, it has to be completely authentic to you. Aquarius. So this is putting the spotlight on Capricorn is your 12th sign. So it's about your feelings, your unconscious, your spirituality. The last sign of any zodiac is also where we connect back to the divine. So this is the time for you to really let go and surrender and realize that maybe you're not in the driver's seat as much as you thought you were, Aquarius. And what also this full moon is telling you to really let go of the things that you don't want to bring with you into whatever this next chapter is, because Saturn is in your sign, Aquarius, the first sign of the zodiac. And this is a time when you're taking the next step up in your life. It's a time of new responsibilities, new directions, but then you have Uranus in your fourth sign, the bottom. And maybe you've made a big move or a big change in the last couple of years, or maybe you're making that right now, Aquarius. But the idea is that something has to shift. It is in the process of shifting. You cannot unshift it. It's like tectonic plates are moving. Either you sort of go with it, or you really kind of create a lot of unnecessary tension in your life. And so maybe this full moon is just telling you to get out of your way. Stop fighting what you don't need to fight anymore. Surrender. Let things go. And maybe you just need to use this full moon to get back in touch with your intuitive voice, especially if there's been so many things changing, Aquarius, that you just need like a check-in with your spiritual team, or a check-in with the divine, or a check-in with your highest self, whatever you want to call it, and sort of make sure that you sort of connect and to feel and understand why some of these changes are happening. But do use this time to do some soul searching, to let go of the things that you don't need to be attached to anymore, and more importantly, to get out of your way, Aquarius. Pisces. So here we are, last sign of the zodiac, Pisces. This full moon is highlighting what's called your 11th sign. The 11th sign is about friends and community. It's about your social circle. It's also about the greater fabric that you're connected to, sense of belonging in the world. And maybe this full moon is saying that you need new friends. Maybe new friends are coming in. Maybe you have to work hard at it. I think that when Saturn sort of went through this part of your chart, 2018, 2019, 2020, you had to get really specific about the friends in your life. And maybe Saturn set a high bar, or a higher bar, for the people that were going to remain in your life. And so this full moon highlights a process that's been going on the last few years, if not the last decade, of really changing how you connect with your social circle or the people around you. But this full moon, on a very surface level, talks about your friends, your groups, your communities. But I think with Saturn in your 12th sign and Uranus in your 3rd sign, you need to do a lot of deep soul searching. You need to let go of maybe a vision of the future, or connections that you had, or even groups that you're a part of, because they're not in alignment with something that's authentic to you. Uranus is in the part of your chart that talks about the voice and communication, so you have to really find your voice right now, Pisces. And maybe your voice is very different, like now that you're finding it, than maybe what the people you were connecting to previously were expecting. So maybe there's a tension in that. But people have left your life the past couple of years, and that said, maybe it's time for a very new type of group, or type of persons in your life right now, Pisces. But it's a new time. So that is your look at the astrology of this full moon around the 12 signs, as it activates the energies of Saturn square Uranus. Again, my name is Katie Sweetman. This is Empowering Astrology. You can find me online at empoweringastrology.com. I'm on Facebook. If you're watching this on Facebook Live, thank you very much for watching. I'm on Instagram. You can watch the replay on IGTV, YouTube, Spotify. But yes, thank you all for joining me again and again. I see some familiar faces. I am deeply appreciative of you all investing not just your time with me, but some of you are actually my clients. When we all connect next week, it's going to be different surroundings. I just don't know what it's going to look like yet. I would also show you my puppy. I think there was some requests for some puppy pics. He's asleep, and that's probably a good thing for right now. But when he's ready for prime time, I will show you. He's like really cute. He looks like a cartoon. He's a Bernedoodle mini. I don't know if you all know what that is. He's a cross between a Bernese Mountain Dog and a poodle, and really cute. So again, my name is Katie Sweetman. Thank you all for watching tonight, and I'll see you all next week. Take care. Bye.